Kevin? Kevin?
Maya, what a surprise. Assuming you're here to see Kevin, you're never going to see him again.
Wait, what?
I never would have gave Brittany and Dr. Foster. It wouldn't have happened. I'm not breaking the news to her. You break the news to her. They found her in an intersection playing in traffic, and she's lucky to be alive. Do you understand? You're not fit to be a foster.
Hey, look, I'm sorry if you're having a bad day, but you really can't be rude to me like that, You can't tell my dad what I'm about to tell you, okay? Okay. Well, as long as no one's, dead. It's actually about sex. I just hate doing it. It's alright. Thank you.
Honey, you defiled my son.
I mean, I'm trying as best I can with his daughter. Tim and I have been married for a year. And, Alina, she just keeps kind of shutting me out. He says that, she's a teenager and things like this happen. But I don't know what to do. Oh, hey, Alina. Leave me alone. You see what I mean? You're not a bitch. I have to call you back. Hey. Look, I'm sorry if you're having a bad day, but you really can't be rude to me like that, Married to your dad, we live in the same house, we gotta try to get along.
Well, I'm sorry, okay?
What's the matter?
I don't want to talk about it.
Hey, look, if you ever do want to talk about it, I'm here. I know I can't replace your mom. But, I've been there. I was in high school.
Option A's ethical reframing, Scene 4 functions less as a story of romance than as a careful, unsettling examination of emotional transference, responsibility, and the fragile line between care and projection within women-centered relationships. And when read through a queer feminist lens, the scene becomes one of the film's most quietly revealing meditations on how unmet desire, compulsory roles, and the hunger for recognition can distort intimacy if they are not held within clear ethical boundaries. The scene opens with Dana already emotionally fatigued, positioned between her role as a wife attempting to build stability and her role as a caregiver, navigating the volatility of a young woman who is struggling to articulate dissatisfaction with a life that appears successful on the surface. And this tension establishes the core conflict, not as attraction, but as misalignment, as Dana's desire to be helpful, affirming, and emotionally present collides with her own unexamined longing. To be seen as necessary and chosen, a longing that queer women in particular may recognize as the residue of years spent learning to be supportive before learning how to ask for their own needs. Alina's moodiness and disrespect, rather than functioning as mere adolescent rebellion or narrative provocation, reads here as a symptom of emotional dissonance, the strain of living in a script that does not fit, where popularity, heterosexual pairing, and external approval are present but internally hollow. And when she finally speaks, the language she uses is tellingly not about desire but about absence, about something not feeling right, about performing intimacy without resonance, which situates her experience squarely within broader conversations about compulsory heterosexuality and the way women are often taught to interpret discomfort as personal failure rather than misalignment. Dana's response in this reframing is not an invitation but a test, one that reveals how easily care can slide into over-identification when the caregiver has unresolved questions of her own, as Dana recognizes elements of her own past confusion in Alina's uncertainty, and this recognition produces not clarity but vulnerability, exposing the danger of seeking self-understanding through another person rather than through reflection and accountability. Critically, the scene's power lies in its restraint, in what is suggested emotionally rather than enacted, as the camera and dialogue emphasize pauses, reassurance, and tone rather than action, making the viewer sit with the discomfort of closeness that has not yet been ethically defined. And this discomfort is not a failure of the film but its intervention, forcing the audience to confront how rarely women are given scripts for intimacy that are neither romantic nor hierarchical, neither sexualized nor dismissive, but grounded in mutual respect and appropriate boundaries. For lesbian and queer women, this dynamic resonates deeply, as many have experienced. Relationships where admiration, mentorship, or emotional reliance served as the only socially legible containers for feelings that had no sanctioned outlet. And the scene captures the ache of that in-between space where connection is real but cannot be acted upon without harm, highlighting the maturity required not to pursue every feeling but to understand it. Dana's insistence on reassurance, her careful but faltering attempt to normalize Alina's experience without redirecting it toward herself, illustrates the film's broader critique of how women are often positioned as emotional first responders without being given tools for ethical containment, expected to soothe, advise, and absorb without guidance on when to step back. And this expectation is intensified for queer women, who are frequently cast as confidants or educators while their own desires remain sidelined or pathologized. The scene also speaks to generational fractures within queer experience, as Dana represents a cohort shaped by silence, by marriages that offered safety but not full authenticity, while Alina represents a generation with more language but still immense pressure to perform normalcy, and their interaction becomes a mirror rather than a meeting point, reflecting parallel struggles rather than a shared solution. Importantly, the analysis must foreground that the film does not present boundary confusion as aspirational, but as a moment of reckoning, a signal that something must change, and when read ethically, the scene demands that Dana choose restraint, self-examination, and distance, not as rejection but as care, reinforcing the idea that love between women is not proven through closeness alone but through responsibility and the willingness to protect another's process of becoming. For women broadly, regardless of orientation, the scene resonates as a portrait of emotional labor fatigue, of being the one who listens while suppressing one's own questions, and of the fear that honesty might destabilize hard-won stability, a fear that keeps many women in roles that feel safe but incomplete. The film's refusal to sensationalize this moment, instead allowing it to remain unresolved and heavy, challenges cultural tendencies to either erase complex female intimacy or to exploit it for drama, insisting instead on nuance and seriousness. And by doing so, it aligns with a lineage of women-centered storytelling that prioritizes interiority over spectacle. Symbolically, Dana's home becomes a liminal space where public roles fall away and private truths threaten to surface, while Alina's confession functions as both a catalyst and a warning, revealing how easily vulnerability can be misread as invitation in a culture that conflates emotional closeness with romantic entitlement. Within queer communities, this scene echoes real conversations about mentorship and power, about the responsibility to model healthy boundaries precisely because so many queer women grew up without them, and the film's willingness to sit with that responsibility rather than bypass it for catharsis marks it as ethically engaged rather than exploitative. Ultimately, Scene 4, when reframed through Option A, is not about forbidden romance, but about the cost of unresolved desire and the courage required to redirect it inward, to seek truth without causing harm, and to recognize that visibility without ethics is insufficient, as the film argues that women's love for women, in all its forms, must be grounded not only in longing, but in care, accountability, and the difficult work of knowing when connection must transform into distance, making the scene a pivotal meditation on what it truly means to be present for another woman, in a world that still struggles to imagine such presence without distortion.